We're talking today with Vern Erskine of Moran, Michigan, and the interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Okay, Vern, start us off with some background on yourself, and to begin with, where and when were you born?
I was born in Allenville, Michigan in 1921.
All right, and what part of Michigan is that?
That's Upper Peninsula.
Okay, so you're up in the UP. Okay. Now, did you grow up there?
I grew up there except for the time I spent in the service.
All right. And what was your family doing for a living when you were a kid?
Farming.
Okay. And what were you farming up here?
Oh, potatoes, all kinds of grain.
Okay. Okay. And did your family own the farm?
Yes.
And were you able to keep it during the Depression?
Yes.
Okay. Did things get difficult for a while in the 30s?
Yes, in the 1930s it was very difficult.
Okay. Now, and how many kids were in your family?
4 boys and a girl.
Okay. All right. And where were you in line?
I was a second.
Okay. All right. And so, and how long did you go to school? Did you go through 8th grade or through high school?
Oh, I went through the 12th grade
Okay. And where were you going to high school?
in St. Ignace, Michigan.
Okay. And how long did it take you to get to school?
You know, in the morning, well, it'd take about 3/4 of an hour, I'd say, to drive.
Okay. All right. And was that a problem in the winter?
Yes.
Okay. Now, would they close school if it was really bad, or?
Oh, they had their snow days, same as they have today.
Okay. All right. And now, do you remember how you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Yes, on the radio.
Okay. Was that at home?
At home, yes.
Okay. All right. And before Pearl Harbor happened, because now you're about 20 years old when that happens. Let's see. Had you been working by then? Or were you still living at home?
Gee,
Okay.
I was living at home, I know, but
Okay. Well, were you working on the farm?
on the farm, yes. I think I had a part-time in a garage gas station, just
Okay. All right. Now, before Pearl Harbor happened, did you pay very much attention to the news about the war that was already going on?
oh yes.
Okay. And did you expect that at some point we might get into it?
Not at that time.
Okay. All right. So Pearl Harbor was something of a surprise then.
Yes.
All right. And then after that happened, did you want to go enlist, or did you get a deferment, or what did you do? Or did you just wait for Uncle Sam to call you?
I waited for Uncle Sam to call.
All right. And so, when did you get your draft notice? Okay. Well, I guess I think you signed papers in September of 42, and then reported to training a little bit after that? 'Cause that's what
I
you're,
believe it, yeah.
okay. So fall of 1942 basically is when you go in.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And now where is the first place that you report to? You know, they say you have to go here.
Camp Grant.
Camp Grant, that's in Illinois.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how did you get down to Camp Grant?
I'll retract that statement, Camp Grant. We went to Marquette, the first place and were inducted.
Okay. Right. Okay. And
And then we went to Camp Grant.
okay. And could you take a train from there?
Train, yes.
All right. And then was Camp Grant just processing?
Yes.
Okay. And so where do they send you for basic training?
Camp Livingston,
Okay. And where is that?
Louisiana,
Okay.
close to Shreveport.
All right. Camp Livingston, Louisiana. All right. And then how did they get you from Camp Grant down to Camp Livingston? Was that another train ride?
Camp Grant, yeah, I guess it was. I remember that, yep.
Okay. Do you remember about how long it took to get from Illinois to Louisiana on a train?
Gee, I know it was a long time. Everybody was very uneasy from
Okay.
being on the train so long.
All right. So would they let you off the train at all?
I don't remember that.
Okay.
You know, that's
All right. And then did they just have you sitting in the regular seats, or were there bunks that you could sleep in?
No, just regular seats.
Okay. And so it's a whole bunch of new inductees being sent off to train together.
Right.
Okay. And then when you get to Camp Livingston, then what happens?
Well, of course, we went to the headquarters and everybody was interviewed, and they kind of chose people for the infantry and for artillery and the engineers and the artillery IQ kind of decided whether they'd go in the infantry or artillery, and I had a pretty high IQ, so I went in artillery.
Okay. And were you perfectly happy to do that?
After I was there a while and seeing what the infantry was doing, I was very happy.
Okay. All right. Now, describe a little bit the kind of training that you got there. I mean, what were the first few weeks like?
The first few weeks was close order drill, forward march, and learning the orders, the signals of the army. You know.
Okay. And was there a lot of emphasis on discipline?
Oh yes, very much.
What would happen if you messed up?
Going KP,
Okay. And what was KP?
kitchen police,
All right. So
clean up,
you're washing pots and dishes.
yeah,
And,
washing pots and dishes and pans.
all right. And I guess, how easy or hard was it for you to adjust to being in the Army?
You know, I was quite young and not too much experience, and it didn't bother me much.
So-
More or less was something new to me and kind of liked it.
Okay. All right. So just sort of a new adventure, and so
Yeah.
would you just do what they told you to do?
Right.
Okay. All right. And now when you got there, were you already training to become part of a unit, or I mean, were they forming a division there then?
Oh no, it was completely,
It was just general at that point.
yeah,
Okay. And then how long did that first part of training take? Just sort of the basic training part.
6 weeks.
Okay. And once you finished that, then did you get assigned to
Got assigned to the artillery. I didn't.
Okay. Now at that,
Before that time, we were with the infantry.
right. So everybody gets the same training to start with, and it's
Oh yes.
okay. Now, with that infantry training, were you firing weapons and things like
Oh
that?
yes.
Okay. And do you remember what kinds of weapons you trained on? Just the rifle, or did you get a?
Yeah, we had the old bolt action rifle.
Oh, like the old 303s, the World War I rifles?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you had the. So you didn't even have the M1 yet?
We got the M1 when we were at Livingston.
Okay. So you get that eventually, but okay. So you do that kind of thing. Now, when you're assigned to the artillery, did you have an artillery training that you had to go through, or did you just go into a unit and start doing your job?
No, you trained. They had so many hours a day. You had to train, attend classes, and
Okay. Now there are a number of different jobs in the artillery. What kind of work were you training for? Was it firing the artillery, or were you doing support?
for firing
Okay.
and yeah, that'd be one would be for firing and uh, taking commands on like they called it deflection when you knew that you had to change the direction.
Mm-hmm.
They charged altitude, well, you know, you're changing the altitude.
Right.
And
So you're learning to adjust the gun to fire
Yeah.
at different distances and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And did they teach you anything about the calculations to make, or just how to operate the gun itself?
oh no, you had to work on the site, and they had classes on that.
Mm-hmm.
Work on the site,
Okay. And
and also the aiming circle. That was the main tool of the artillery, was the aiming circle.
can you explain what that was?
It was an instrument similar to the sight on the gun, and the sight and the aiming circle had to be calibrated to each other, so they had both the same reading. And that way they got the direction of fire.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, do you remember what kind of gun you were training on?
Oh yes, 105 millimeter howitzer.
Okay, so that's the main artillery weapon, really,
Right.
for most units that we had then. Okay. Now, was it a reasonably new weapon?
Yes, I said with a weapon. Yes,
Okay.
yes. Well,
So it wasn't left over from World War I or anything
Oh,
like
no,
that?
no.
Okay, good. All right, so you've got basically the kind of weapon that you will use in combat eventually.
Right.
Okay. Now, now you started your training at Camp Livingston. Did you do all of your training there, or did you move someplace else?
No, we'd take trips to different places, and where there was a firing range, and we'd practice firing on a range.
Mm-hmm.
And even when we were in the United States yet, well, we done that,
Mm-hmm.
and we done the same thing when we were in Portugal, in Wales. We whooped over a little firing range that was called a Cine Bridge, and we practiced firing there.
Okay. All right. But those firing ranges were still kind of in the general area around your base.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
In driving distance. You know.
All right. Now, at what point do you join officially a unit? And what division do you join, and when do you join them?
I joined that artillery, 107th Field Artillery, Battery B.
Okay. And what division were they part of?
They were Battery B of the 107th Field Artillery Battalion.
Well, yeah. Well, it'll probably be 1st Battalion, 101st Regiment.
Yeah.
But then that regiment, was that attached to a division?
The 28th Division.
28th Division. Okay. Just wanted you to say that on camera for me. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you're with the 28th Infantry Division. And so was that forming at Camp Livingston? And so they're bringing all the men in there and all the regiments and training them all there?
Yeah, the whole division was there.
Okay. Now, you mentioned going different places for firing ranges. Did the division go on any big field exercises? Like where they do maneuvers someplace with other divisions?
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
And do you remember anything about doing that? Like where you went, or how long it took, or what you were doing?
Well, we were in Livingston.
Mm-hmm.
We made a trip to Georgia, and another one to Virginia, and there was other numerous places that we.
Okay, all right. So you got around quite a bit because
Right.
the Army was staging large maneuvers and trying to get
Yes.
ready to fighting for real. So you were doing some of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you were, and so how long do you think did you stay at Camp Livingston, or when did you ship out? Okay, because your discharge papers say you shipped out in October of '43, so you'd have been at Livingston for about a year, except for the side trips.
Good year we've been there.
Okay, all right. Now, during that year when you're living in Louisiana, could you go off the base at all?
Oh yes, yes.
All right, and where would you go?
I went on furlough once to Washington D.C.
Okay,
and I come home on furlough one time for a few days, for 10 days.
okay, and I guess, and so basically, were you able to travel on trains for free, or did you have to pay your own fare?
No, you had to pay your fare.
Okay, all right. Now, would you ever go into town near the base? Would you go into Alexandria or whatever else was nearby?
Oh yes, yes.
Okay, and what was there to do there?
There was stores, a lot of nice stores, army stores, and photography shops. Now that's where I got these pictures taken. Was at Alexandria.
Okay, so you actually had your own portrait made of yourself in uniform at that
Yeah.
point. Okay, all right. Now, did some of the guys go there to go to bars or go to movies or
Oh
things
yes,
like that?
yes.
All right. Yeah. So, and would there ever be problems in town with guys getting drunk or having fights?
Oh yes, yes. They had their MPs were on duty all the time.
Okay. Now, did you ever get in trouble, or were you a good guy?
I was a pretty good guy, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. You don't. That's a question you don't have to answer if you don't want to. But okay. All right. So that kind of thing is going on, and now during that year when you're in Louisiana, are you following the news of the war and paying attention to what's happening in the Pacific and in North Africa and stuff like that?
Oh yes, we had the Stars and Stripes, and that kept us informed on while the war was going.
Okay. And you were there for a year. Did you start to wonder if the war was going to be over before you got into it, or?
Oh no, no.
Okay. So it was still serious business. Okay. Now we get to the fall of 1943, and now you're going to head over across the Atlantic. And did you get to go home first, or did you just all leave together from Camp Livingston, or?
No, no, we didn't go home.
Okay.
I only had the one furlough.
Right. Okay. So you assemble at Camp Livingston, and then what's the process for getting you over to Britain?
Well, they I remember we crossed the Atlantic.
Okay. And what port did you leave from? Did you go out of New York or Norfolk or New Orleans, or where did you go from?
Gee, I can't remember that right now.
Okay. All right. Was it someplace you hadn't been before?
No, no, we'd been there before.
Okay. So you might have gone to Virginia and gone out that way. Now, what kind of ship were you sailing in?
It was those ships were built for the war. What they called them.
Like the victory ships, or?
Yes.
Yeah. So okay. So you were not going on a converted ocean liner or something like
No,
that.
it
You
was
were going
It was a troop ship.
a troop ship. Okay. And then did you sail in a convoy?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the weather like when you were sailing across the Atlantic?
Some days it was pretty rocky. I can remember one day it was pretty bad and everybody got seasick. It was a terrible mess.
Now, did you get seasick?
I did not.
Okay. Now, how did you avoid that?
I don't know. It was just my mind. I didn't get sick.
Okay. All right. And you remember, let you know, you were in a convoy. Could you see the other ships when you were out on deck?
Oh, yes, yes,
All right. And were there any U-boat scares?
yes, yes. They, numerous times, they had a destroyer, was the escorts. And those destroyers would drop depth bombs. And we could hear them going off and vibrating on our ship.
Right. Okay. Do you know if any of the ships in your convoy got hit?
No, but one day I'm up on the top deck and I'm watching it, and all at once the gun crew went into action, and they manned their gun and started firing, and looked to the river where they were firing, and there's a periscope sticking out of the water.
Oh.
So we fired on that periscope, and the riflemen were firing on it too, and they never bombed us, never torpedoed us. So we must have done something to their periscope.
Yeah, or they realized once they were spotted they shouldn't stay there.
Right.
Yeah, something. Okay. Now that's a little bit unusual. Most guys do not have that happen to them. So, all right. About how long did the trip across the Atlantic take, do you think? Was it 2
12
weeks?
days.
12 days. Okay. Because that's about right for a slower convoy. And then where did you land? What part of Britain did you land in?
It wasn't. Gee,
Okay.
I really can't remember.
Okay.
It doesn't come to my mind.
Well, some people landed in Scotland, and some of them landed at Liverpool. You could have gone to Bristol, I suppose.
I think, if I'm not mistaken now, I recall at Liverpool.
Okay. Yeah, because that was on the west side, so it's a good place
Right.
to land. Okay. And then from there, do they move you down to Wales?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. And so now you get there, it's sort of late fall in 1943. Now, did you stay there until it was time in Wales until it was time to ship over to France? Did you mostly do your training there?
Yes, yes, except side trips we'd make.
Right. Okay.
Like I said before, we went up to Sydney Bridge and different towns.
Okay. Now, did you ever go to London?
Yes,
Okay. And so what was that like?
very different. The people were all nice to us and everything, but they had a different way of living, and that was very, very audible. That you could pick out the way they lived. You know.
Okay. Yeah. You were
For
not.
one thing, they didn't have bathrooms. All they had was a curtain hanging up, and everybody would run to that bathroom, and did you run down the curb?
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't get over that because
Okay. You must not have been in the right neighborhood. But yeah, okay. But living in a city with all those people and stuff, that was not what you were used to. Okay. Now, when you went to London, were there air raid scares? I mean, did the sirens go off?
yes, yes.
Okay. And what did you do when that happened?
There wasn't much we could do because London's a vast area,
Mm-hmm.
and we just keep our head low and
Okay. So you didn't go down into the subway system or
No.
underground or anything like
No.
that? Okay. All right. Now, what was the area like in Wales around your base? What was that country like?
Sandy,
Okay.
a lot of sand everywhere. And in front of the hotel where we stayed in Porthcawl was this, what they called the Esplanade. And it was solid concrete. And all the doings of the city was held on that Esplanade.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'd gather there when they had a formation. Well, they'd let their out, formation, and we had to gather on the Esplanade. And you can imagine about 400 or 500 of them lined up on that Esplanade. Everybody had to cough and spit, and it was a mess.
Okay.
And the city officials were complaining about it. And they tried to overcome it, to refrain, but it didn't do much good.
Oh, well. All right. Now, could you go into town kind of individually and in small groups and, go to the pubs or...
Oh, yes, yes.
All right. And how did the people in the community treat you?
Very good, very good. They were very nice to us.
All right. Now, did some of the guys there have girlfriends?
Oh, yes, always.
Okay. I suppose there weren't that many British men around. At least not young ones.
Maybe one story I could tell you.
Okay. All right.
From Porthcawl, all the men that were of draftable age or army age were shipped to India, and there were no men in the households. So I won't mention these guys' names or nothing, but this one guy, he took up with this woman and she had a bunch of kids, but very little place to sleep. So she made him a bed in the bathtub. And of course, during the night, them kids had to get up and go to the bathroom. Well, they'd pee in the bathtub.
Oh.
And they really soaked him up.
Okay.
And he deserved it, though.
Yeah, well, he would have been better off back at the base at that point. Okay. All right. So you were there. Now, do you remember hearing about the D-Day landings?
About the what?
D-Day. When D-Day happened, what do you remember about that? And did that get announced? Hey, we've landed in France now, or?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. But what I remember more than anything was an armada of airplanes that went over to bomb the beaches in France. And there was all kinds of bombers. Just wave after wave of these bombers would go. And they were gone quite a while, and then they started coming back. And you could tell they'd been in battle. Some of them, the wings were just flopping on them. The fabric was flopping away, and the engine were, some of them didn't have but one engine running, and it was a terrible sight when they come back. But they done a lot of good.
All right, and then they also took the paratroopers over and the gliders and all of that too. Now, were you still in Wales at that point?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, do you have an idea or a general sense of how long it was before you went over to France?
12 12 days after D-Day.
Okay, so you land at D plus 12. All right. And then how did they get you across the channel?
Landing ship tank.
Okay, so you were on an LST.
Right.
All right. And did you have any trouble going over?
Not a bit.
Okay. All right. And then what happens when you got to France? So the
Well,
ship pulls up?
when we got close to France's beach there, to Omaha Beach, well, wreckage started showing up. And I know I couldn't count all the bodies that were floating.
Okay, so there's still bodies floating out there offshore 12 days later. Okay.
And they were recovering them, they were trying to recover them.
Mm-hmm.
But, oh, it was a busy place at Omaha Bay Beach. There was a steady stream of LCIs, landing craft,
Mm-hmm.
running back and forth to the ships, unloading the ships. But these were big ocean liners that they were unloading, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But when we landed right on, why, there wasn't a foot of water to drive through.
Okay. But you go right onto the sand, right onto the beach? So
I left the ramp down.
Okay. You get right off. Okay. And then once you're ashore, now what happens?
Well, we're unloading, and of course, our colonel come along, and he's investing, you know, looking at different trucks. And when I was on the ship going across the channel, well, I made a good acquaintance with the Master-at-Arms. Well, the Master-at-Arms is in charge of supplies too. So you go down below decks, and I had to sit there and talk to him, and he was very concerned and interested in. He said, "What do you think you'll be short of?" He said, "when you get in France." And I said, I don't know, you tell me, what do they need? Well, he said, you'll need milk, powdered milk, coffee. So, man, he gave me coffee and sugar and powdered milk and potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
Powdered potatoes.
Okay.
And man, I had the top of our truck in between the cover. It was loaded with all kinds of stuff. Well, we're coming off of the ship, and the colonel here, he's there to greet us. And he lets one move put up, and he says, "What do we got here, a bunch of gypsies?" And I never said to her nothing. Just kept my eyes. I was best not to say nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So we had gotten a little dog when we were in Portugal, a little pup. And of course it was cracked growing by the time we went. And when he's there bawling me out for looking like a bunch of gypsies, out sticks that dog and starts to bark. And he said, "I told you to get rid of that dog." That's the last he said. We kept the dog for a long time, till we got into Luxembourg. The name of the town was Tiger. Well, the dog run away on us.
Okay. All right. Now, did you get to keep the food?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So he didn't make you unload all the stuff that you put on your truck?
No,
He just called you.
I gave it all to the. We did run short of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no delivery, you know, over there, especially then. And so one thing I had to the story was that the master at arms says, anything else you want? I said, well, what have you got? He said, well, I'll tell you what. He said, I got cases of chicken, canned chicken, all white meat. And I said, would you give me a case of that? And he said, yes. So he gave me a case of that white chicken. I took that and I put it up with the rest of the stuff. But one time the colonel come down and he said, what are we having for dinner? And he was in a better mood that day. And what are we having for dinner? And I said, well, I understand. I said, we're having pork. Oh, he said, that's what the other battery's having too. He said, I gotta find something else. He said, I'm tired of that. So I said to him, I said, how would you like a nice chicken dinner? And where you gonna get a chicken dinner? He said, and so I got out one of them cans of that chicken, pretty good sized can, like a number 10 can. And I said, here I go. I said, here, have dinner. He thanked me and walked away. But he said, where did you get that? And I said, well, remember that day when you said we looked like a bunch of gypsies coming out of the boat? I said, well, that was part of the gypsy. He never said nothing.
All right. Okay. So once you land in Normandy, then how long before your battery starts to go into action?
Well, I'll tell you, like I said, we went ashore, and it was busy. Oh, they were just, and then up on top of it, when you got up on the hill, they had these fences all built up, and there were German prisoners of war. There were just thousands of them in them, behind that barbed wire. And, well, we were there on the beach, getting ready to move out. Well, over comes an ME-109 Messerschmitt.
Mm-hmm.
Right, it looked like you could reach up and touch him. And he was coming at high speed, and everyone thought he was going to strafe, you know. It was nothing but a scare tissue.
Mm-hmm.
Down low, you know, disrupts everything. And then he'd be disrupted. But it only went over the once.
Mm-hmm.
ME-109.
Okay. So a single engine fighter plane?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But now did your batteries, you go up, basically up the bluffs onto the regular level of the land in Normandy. Did you go very far inland, or did you set up pretty close to the shore?
Well, they had taken St. Lo.
Okay, well they take St. Lo, that's later.
Yeah, down.
But yeah, that's some ways inland. Okay.
Yeah, but they had taken to St. Lo. The Americans had terrorists taken St. Lo, and we went down through St. Lo, and there were bulldozers and tanks with bulldozer blades on, pushing junk out of the way so we could make it through.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this was still 12 days after.
Well, we didn't get to St. Lo until latter part of July, but when St. Lo was taken, we carpet bombed it, so there was just destruction all over the place.
Oh, yes.
And that's what you're seeing with the bulldozers and all
Yeah,
that.
those bombers,
Okay.
they had really made a mess there.
Mm-hmm.
Because St. Lo was really a stronghold.
Right.
And
Now, did you do any fighting before you went through St. Lo, or did you?
no,
Oh, okay.
no, we didn't.
All right.
But then they took us in and we bivouacked overnight. And I can remember getting there was a stream running through right through the where we were camped, a nice little stream, kind of fast growing, and so me being an explorer, I had to find out what was up that creek. So I went up that creek about, well, maybe 100 feet or so, and there I come across 3 dead Germans. And that's one sight that I never get out of my mind. One guy's head was blown right off. And all that was sticking up was the neck bone. And he was laying in the water. And I was thinking, boy, we've been using that water. But that was one of the times we were landing.
Right. Okay.
But,
Okay. So this is going to be kind of more like late July of '44
Yes.
when that's happening. Yeah. Okay. Now, did you set up and shoot from there, or did you just keep moving?
no, we moved out further. And we're getting to the hedgerow country.
Right.
And so they moved us into this area, and that was the first time we put our guns in firing position. And we had everything all set, and camouflage nets up, and hedgerows all around, and they told us if any airplanes come over, you know, not to shoot at them with a pistol or a rifle or anything, because they'd attract attention to them, and
Right.
they'd come and really work us over. Well, we spent that one night. Well, then the Germans, they started firing on us from higher land. We were down lower, and boy, there wasn't no guns firing. Everybody run. Cause it was the first battle, and they were all scared, you know. And I done me good. We had this captain, I won't mention his name, but he was a smart aleck, and you couldn't talk to him or nothing. And I'll never forget, it done me good to see him going, running like a dog with a tail between his legs to the rear. I often thought of that, him running like that, and then thinking about that fellow they took before the firing squad from Poland. He wasn't from, he was from America, but he was Polish.
Was that Eddie Slovak? He was the deserter who got caught and
Yeah.
executed. I think he deserted twice or something. But yeah. But okay. Now, did the captain ever come back?
No.
Okay.
And that's the last time I ever seen him.
Okay. So you got a new captain after that?
Yep.
Okay. Now, when this happened and everyone ran away, did you guys just wait for the firing to stop and then go back, or did someone come and make you go back to the guns?
I stayed on my gun,
Okay.
and I stayed right there, and I kept firing and firing.
Did you have any orders coming in to fire?
Oh yes, from the firing direction was they had protection. They weren't under fire, nothing.
Yeah. Okay. But so there were some other men. Were there other men who did stay with the guns?
Oh no, not everybody.
Just you by yourself?
That one gun in out of 4 of them in my battery
Okay.
was the only gun there.
All right. Yeah.
And I was doing all the work by myself, everything. And it's a good thing I had the aim mistakes out,
Mm-hmm.
or I wouldn't have been able.
Okay.
Well, I kept firing, so I'm getting pretty tired, and all at once I hear this voice say to me, "Do you need any help?" And already I know that who kidnapped me. And so after I got a minute, I looked up, and here was this red-headed fellow from Bowling Green, Kentucky. And he said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Can you take care of that #1 position on the gun?" "Yeah, that's what I do in my gun," he said.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "What happened to your crew? They're all gone," he said. Well, him and I fired that gun. I don't know how many rounds we fired. We had an awful pile of used ammunition
Right.
anyway.
Because you have the shell casings left, or the...
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
And so finally the fire, the Germans quit firing on us.
Mm-hmm.
It quieted down. Well, this guy, he took over for captain. Well, his name was Anderson. Well, when he come up, that's the first thing he said to me. He said, "You're going to get the Silver Star."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Well, that'd be good." And I said, "Don't forget my red-headed buddy there, too." And "I won't," he said. Well, that's the last I ever heard of that, except another time you promised me the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's as far as it ever gone.
Yeah. Well, it certainly sounds like you earned it.
Well,
You know, that's
I'd
what...
like to got it, but
All right.
I
Okay.
wasn't medal happy.
Okay. So after this happens, are you basically in charge of that gun now? I mean, was that your gun already, or
Well,
were you just one of the crewmen?
That's another thing I wanted to tell you. My section chief I was the corporal, I was the gunner. That was my job on the gun, was the gunner. And I operated this site, and so that guy that was the section chief, he was the biggest coward I ever seen in my life. Every time there was a fire went off anywhere close, he was in his foxhole. And even the officers, they called him the mole, because he was always digging.
Mm-hmm.
But
So you were basically in charge a lot.
yes,
Okay. All right. Now, so that was your first kind of actual experience in combat then, that day, with the
Yes.
fire coming in after that. Now, after that, did you pack up and move someplace else, or did you stay there for a while?
no, we stayed there a while,
Okay.
and we fired, because that was that hedgerow country, and the Germans they could still be there, and you wouldn't even know it. And we stayed there for quite a while. And I had my crew back. They come back and sunk back after
Mm-hmm.
it was over. But then they moved us up into the hedgerow country more.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember yet, along the edges of the roads that went through that hedgerow was a regular windrow of empty cartridges from machine guns, where they fired from tanks, and I mean a regular windrow, foot high.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you see places where the bulldozers had cut through hedgerows or anything like that?
What's that?
Did you see, because they had eventually, the Americans had bulldozers on the front of tanks, and they
Yes.
would cut into the hedgerows with
Yeah.
those. Did you see places where tanks did that?
Oh yes.
Okay, all right. Now, at some point, not too long after that, we do kind of start breaking out of the hedgerow country, and you get into open country after that.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And do you remember kind of where you went? I mean, did you go into Brittany, or did you go east, kind of toward across France, or what did you do next?
I'm trying to think. I'm thinking that we left the hedgerow country in my mind. I'm not too certain about it. I'm
Okay.
right in it. But anyway, we went to Erskine Forest.
Okay. So to get there, you've got to go across France. Did you go around Paris or through Paris or?
No, we went around
You
Paris.
went around there, okay. And then you have to go across northern France and go up into Belgium, and then keep going to kind of get to the German frontier, which is where the Hurtgen
Well,
Forest area is.
along the way, I know that we had battles along the way. We'd go into position and
Right. And in those kinds of battles, what would happen?
well, we usually fire on them, go into position on some town, and usually those towns are always on a hill. Almost every town there on a hill, or
Right.
there won't be too big of a town, but there'll be a church and a school and farms. And one thing about they kept the farmers kept their cattle right in the basement of the house they lived in. And it was kind of an odd situation, but
Yeah. Would you sometimes sleep in the houses?
oh yes, sometimes.
Okay. And would you sleep with the cows, or did you go upstairs?
No, we'd always be upstairs.
Okay.
But the people would really be gone, or
Okay. So basically, you would go in and you'd set up in a town someplace because you had the
on
vantage
the
point of the
outskirts
hill.
of that town,
Right. Okay.
And
then-
we'd fire on that town, and no, not on the town, but on the Germans,
Right.
On their tanks and I can remember that one night we fired all night long, and on just not too long a distance, just short range. But we fired in that town where in the morning was quite early, the sun was coming up. And they gave us CSMO, close station march order. Well, you pick up everything, your gun, you're moving. So we picked up all of our guns and everything, and we moved, and we had to go right through that town that we'd liberated, that night. Well, gee, the people were all out there to greet us. And I can remember, it was just like yesterday, it seemed. Well, these kids were always asking me, have some gum, gum. Well, we'd always give them whatever gum we had in. So this one girl come out, and there was a guy on our crew, his name was Borovich. Well, he was throwing her sticks of gum, and she was stooping over to pick them up, and she forgot. All she had on was just a white negligee, white gown. Well, she's running to pick up that gun and that come right home. And the Borgovich was looking for gum all over the
All right. So a little bit of extra entertainment in that case. Okay. All right. So this was not. So you were not actually bombarding the town itself
No,
with your
just,
gun, but there had been fighting
the
in that
highway
area. Yeah. But you'd all chase the Germans off, and they're all happy to
Yeah.
see you at that point. Yeah. Okay. So when you were going across France, would that be the kind of thing where you'd set up and fire for a day or a few hours, and then pack up and move
oh
again?
yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then you France and cross into Belgium. And the Germans mostly at this point are retreating until they get pretty much up to the German frontier, and that's where the Hürtgen Forest area is.
Yes.
All right. Now, was the Hürtgen Forest kind of the next place where you fought a lot, as opposed to one day here, one day there?
We were stationed in the Hürtgen Forest for, I don't know how long it was.
Probably weeks at least.
At least,
Yeah, and this is kind of now well into the fall. It's
Yes.
getting colder and.
yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now, describe what it was like to be in the Hürtgen Forest. What sort of place was that?
Well, it had the nicest big beech trees you ever seen. A big beech, you know, like 3 foot on a stump and more. And but mud, oh, there was mud, and the Germans were dug in. Man, they had all kinds of protection, and the Americans didn't have none.
Yeah.
Well, the 28th Division, the infantry, and that, they just about got wiped out. Just about cleaned them right out. And,
Now, what was it like being in the artillery at that point? Did the Germans bombard your positions?
oh, yes, every night. And there was, right behind me was an anti-aircraft gun. And the guy on that anti-aircraft gun, the sergeant in charge was a friend of mine. I mean, I made friends with him. We run across each other because they were attached to us. And they always seemed to be close.
Right.
Well, I went back the next day to see him. And to see what he was doing, you know, and now, because I'd heard some explosions back the other night. I got out there and they were cleaning stuff up. And the gun is just sitting there, just a black skeleton, burnt. And he told me what happened. He took a direct hit, right in there in the gun pit. And he said, lucky was, he said, there was nobody on the gun. He said, we were all doing something else. And so the commander of this anti-aircraft, he got and balled them out because nobody got hurt. That was there was nobody on, he told him there was nobody on the gun, you know. He said, well, how come you left the gun alone? But that, I believe that's the last time that I ever run across that sergeant from the
Well,
anti-aircraft.
now, did German aircraft ever come over at night?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Okay. So they should have been on the gun, or somebody should have been.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. There should have been somebody on the gun.
Now, when you were in the Hürtgen Forest, did you basically dig in one place and stay there, or did they move you to different positions?
No, we basically stayed right in this one position where we were.
Okay. And then did you dig in and make shelters for yourselves?
Oh, yeah, we had shelters. We took over a German shelter. and it was made out of concrete, and we stayed in that shelter. It was kind of a good place to stay.
Mm-hmm.
But I often thought, the Germans know where this is. I wonder if we're safe here.
Yeah, but it had a concrete roof.
Yeah.
So it's a proper bunker. So that might have been hard to knock out even with the regular artillery.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
A mortar wouldn't hurt it.
Right. Okay. Now, this tape is just about up, so we are going to pause right here and give ourselves a little bit of a break. All right. Now, in your story, we had gotten you into late in 1944, and your unit is in the Hurtgen Forest on the German frontier. And you were just talking about the kind of conditions there, and you talked that you were in a German bunker, so you had a place to hide at least when you were under fire. Now, how did they feed you when you were there? I mean, did the regiment have a field kitchen, or did you just?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, and so how would you get fed? I mean, you're at your firing positions, so.
No, we'd go one or two at a time and eat.
Okay, so there was a mess tent or something, or
They had
a truck?
They had this trailer, kitchen trailer.
Okay,
They had to fly up and then
all right.
we'd go there.
Yeah. Now, were there times when you couldn't get back there, and then you had to eat K rations, or?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we had K rations and C rations.
All right. Now, a lot of people these days probably don't even know what those are. What's the difference between a K ration and a C ration?
Our C rations, the modern one, it's the World War II ration. And the C ration is the World War One, and it's in cans.
Okay.
You got to open a can.
Right.
Whereas the K rations in a package.
Mm-hmm. And was that mostly dry food, or?
There was gum in there, stick of gum, cigarettes for those that smoked them.
Mm-hmm.
I always gave mine away. And then there was a cold food, like some kind of sausage or meat or something like that. It was fairly good ration for being.
Well, it had calories and salt and whatever. Okay. All right. Now, did your own battery take casualties in the Hurtgen Forest, or did the guys around you get hit?
Is that no?
Did the men in your battery take casualties in the Hurtgen Forest? Were there men who got killed or wounded there?
A lot of men got trace foot
Okay.
because of the wet weather in when we were in Hurtgen Forest. I don't know what time, what day it would have been. General Eisenhower was going around checking the troops, and so he came to our battery, and he's checking because everybody, they don't have no boots or nothing, just the shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and what I was going to say was, I got to shake General Eisenhower's hand.
Mm-hmm.
He congratulated us and said what a good job we were doing.
Okay. But did he get you any new boots?
Well, he went back to Paris,
Mm-hmm.
and he took every pair of Arctics or boots that they had in Paris and sent them to the front.
Okay.
Which I thought was he had a nice jacket on, and he took that jacket off and gave it one to one of the soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
a real nice man to talk to.
All right. Okay. Now, when you think about that period there when you're in the Hurtgen Forest, are there other particular things that you remember about being there?
Well, what I'd like to say was, I mentioned about the wet weather and everybody having trench foot. And there was a lot of fellas. There was one fella's name was, he was a Mexican man anyway, but a real nice guy. And he had the biggest scar on his face I've ever seen. Right down he had been in North Africa. And that's where he got wounded, got that. He wouldn't talk about it. But I don't know whatever happened to him, and I took a liking to each other. And he said, can I stay? Can I bunk in with you guys? And I said, yeah, sure. So he come and he bunked with us. And he was there, and he was with the forward observing crew.
Okay.
And so he'd go out on these missions, and he went on 3 or 4 of them, and he'd come back and he'd always talk to me and tell me. So this one time, they were going out on this mission, they're getting ready, just about ready to go, and he came over and he said, by that time, we're calling each other by the first name. And he said, Vern, he said, would you get my bedroll for me? He said, I don't have time yet. And I said, well, what do you want? He said, everything. He had everything in the bedroll, everything that he needed. So I went and I got his bedroll and took it out to him, and I said, what's the problem? Where are you going? I'm going up to the front, he said. And I said, well, you'll be coming back. Why don't you leave your stuff here? I'll take care of it for you. No, he said, I won't be back. I said, why not? I said, you getting transferred or something? No, he said, I just won't be back. So he went to the front with the lieutenant and the crew. And so a little while we get a telephone call from the front from the lieutenant. President got killed. And that's the end of him.
Okay.
But there was a lot of happenings in the Hurtgen Forest. It was the 11th of November, Armistice Day, and we got up in the morning, and the weather had changed. You could see the sky was just as clear as could be, and everything was sparkling in the sunlight now. So overhead, there was a German plane circling around. You could see these things down his wings, and he kept circling around pretty high altitude, but I knew he was taking pictures of what he was doing. So we watched him for quite a while, and the anti-aircraft would fire, and they wouldn't come nowhere close. It burst, and you could see it burst in the plane. He kept flying. Well, then he had got all the pictures he wanted. Well, all I wanted, down comes a regular snowstorm of literature, of papers, and it was on it was we are about to die. give up now. Or words to that effect, you know.
So he's dropping propaganda leaflets on you?
Them leaflets, they all dropped down.
Yeah.
I gathered some of them, but I had them in my collection, but they got burnt. But we didn't stay in American Forest long after that, because the infantry, if I remember right now, I think Bonn, Germany's kind of north of Herdman. These infantrymen were all coming back from Bonn. They had taken Bonn from the Germans.
Probably you're coming from Aachen.
Aachen, you're right.
Yeah, because First Division would, yeah, because
Aachen, that's what I was trying to think.
Right. Yeah, because that was sort of the first city in Germany that we captured.
I'm glad you brought that up.
All right.
But
So they took your place in line?
no, they just coming through.
Okay.
But man, every one of them that you talked to had just watched big money, German money.
Mm-hmm.
I got some here again, and they had robbed these banks in Aachen.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And they brought that money back with them, you know. It's not worth anything anymore.
Nope. And then you think you moved pretty soon after that?
Yes.
Okay. And then where did they move you to? Did you go to the rear or just a new place in line?
From American Forest, see, that was in November.
Yeah. And then in the middle of December, you're on the line in the Ardennes Forest.
Where?
Well, the Ardennes Forest is where, for the Battle of Bulge.
Yeah.
Is that did you just go straight from Hürtgen Forest down the line to the
I
Ardennes?
believe it, yes.
Okay. Because did they tell you that you were moving to a quiet sector? Or did they just move you and not tell you anything?
Well, they didn't tell you, much about where you're moving to or anything.
Okay.
No. I'm trying to think, I'm mixed up, I believe. Bastogne.
Well, Bastogne is late December. That's in the Battle of the Bulge. Okay. Now, when the 28th Division goes down to the Ardennes Forest, they're stretched out in a pretty large area.
Yes.
And they've got two regiments kind of on the line, and then the 110th Regiment is kind of in reserve behind them. Now, do you know which regiment you were stationed close to? Were you with the 110th or the 108th or 12th?
109th.
109th. Okay. All right. And was that regiment up on the front line when the Battle of the Bulge started, or were they in the rear?
Oh no,
Yeah, I think they were on the front.
They were a fighting regiment.
Yeah.
109th.
Okay. All right. So, did you have a couple of weeks in the Ardennes where things were fairly quiet?
Yes, we except for just the regular role of life,
Mm-hmm.
And the army wouldn't be going on.
Mm-hmm.
But it was pretty quiet.
Mm-hmm.
But now, I just got that World War II magazine here this week or last week,
Mm-hmm.
and it mentioned the Normandy massacre.
Mm-hmm.
You recall that?
Mm-hmm.
From Bastogne, close to Bastogne.
That was some ways north and east of Bastogne.
Yep. Yep.
And those were some of the men who were caught up in the area north of where you were.
Yep.
Normandy was north of where you were. Let's go to, okay, so you basically, you go, and were you in, do you think you were in Luxembourg at this point, kind of the northern part of Luxembourg, or in Belgium, or do you not know?
It was Luxembourg or Diver.
Yeah, that was in Luxembourg. I think Clairvaux and Wiltz were in Luxembourg too, and those were kind of behind your positions. Anyway, okay, so you have a fairly quiet time initially, and then middle of December, the Germans start attacking.
Yeah.
Okay, and so do you remember the beginning of that?
You know, that must have been when we were in Diver.
Yeah.
And Diver was kind of built on a hill, like, and the Germans were coming to take Diver back. They wanted to get it back for some reason, and I don't know. Well, we fired on their equipment, you know, and we were really busy. Well, man, they made a big attack, and I mean, they threw everything at us, and they had us surrounded. Well, all of a sudden, we get the order, CSMO again. So, away we go. Well, like I said, the section chief wasn't too sharp. He was just too scared to be, and especially like a battle we were having at Diver, man. But anyway, we were there, and we made a trip across this field, walked across it, and it was about actually a couple miles.
Well, was there snow on the field, or was it clear? Was
Rain and mud and snow.
Okay.
And we get up there, and it's right at the crossroads, the main crossroads. And the Germans had that zeroed in. So went up there, and they should give us a position to hold it. And I'm along this highway, and all one time, these machine gun bullets started popping right alongside of me and throwing them a dust. So man, I took off on a run, and I found underneath this road, I found a big culvert. You could stand up in it. And I got in that, and by that time, there was quite a few other guys in it too. Well, I'm in there, and there's an apple tree right out from that end of that. And we're shooting at that apple tree, getting the apple. Well,
how did you get out of there?
Well, the battle kind of stopped. Everybody was firing on that intersection. And all the artillery. And so I'm in that, still in that culvert, and this guy comes up one of them was there, and I know him. He was a ranger from the Ranger Battalion.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to him, I said, where did you come from? Back in there, he said. I said, what's it like back there? He said, there's a dead German under a relief. He said, we really wiped them out.
All right. So,
Between the artillery fire and infantry and the stuff, he said, they're gone.
okay. So the Germans, you thought they had you surrounded,
Yeah,
but they left.
yeah,
Okay. So you didn't get captured or anything else like that.
no.
All right. All right. And then were you able to stay in that town, or did they move you somewhere else?
We stayed, we went back to that town after that battle on that intersection. And that's when we got into it.
Okay.
That night, well, right where I had my gun set up, there was an orchard. Well, you gotta find out for minimum, maximum elevation, you know. So I turned that in, recorded it, made sure I had it recorded. And so, gee, that night the day fire on, holy mackerel, was terrible. Just steady, I mean, oh,
So firing coming in at you?
yeah.
Okay.
And so, we were looking for a place to stay, see, so there was a nice house just down from our gun in there, and some of the guys went exploring, and they went in that house, and oh, it was a beautiful place. The doctor owned it, and I went down there and went up. It was about 3 stories high in the house. And I went up the top story up in the called the attic, and there were big piles of apples up there. Each one eaten individually and wrapped. Man, we had apples. But that night, right after the Germans started firing, you know, and so, gee, they knew that we were going to be captured, you know, because we didn't have nothing to stop them. So they moved out, and they took everything, you know, the whole battery, regular close station march, whatever, and so we went out through Dykerk, and that's where I got hit with that shrapnel
Okay.
in the back. And,
Now, was that from shell fire or?
yeah, from
Or mortars
artillery,
or
German
artillery?
artillery.
Okay.
And no, that I had that belt, I wanted to keep it, and I don't know what happened to it. But anyway, it's just about that shrapnel just about cut the belt in two. Well, man, finally it's our turn to move out of there. And we get out and we go down to where they'd set up on, for another position. And so they started checking the ammunition. And they found out that the 12 rounds of white phosphorus was missing. So the captain asked me if I knew where that 12 rounds was, and I said, well, Captain, I think I know where I could find it. I said, So, but my foreman there, that coward, he said, he's there. Yeah, he knows where it is. Man, I wanted to say you're coming with me. So anyway, I went back up there and got that 12 rounds of.
So you had left that behind in
Yes,
your previous
they
position.
forgot it.
So the Germans could have been there by the time you went
Oh
back.
yes.
Okay.
Well, I get up there on that where that position was with the Jeep.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to load those 12 rounds and take them back, see.
Right.
Well, we found the ammunition. I knew where it was. Found it. And I think you know what way phosphorus is.
Mm-hmm.
It'll burn a hole right through you.
Right.
Well, we're taking that white phosphorus back down to the gun, you know. And, well, way there, well, I heard this. No, I'm getting in myself. I didn't go. I stayed back. I had to stay back for some reason or another. And the rest of it they took and went back down to where the battery had set up position. And where the Germans firing. Man, right in the bed burner was, all the people in that town were leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And it was blocking the highway, and you couldn't get through, you know. So another guy volunteered to stay with me, and I wish he wouldn't because he was scared, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't blame him, but I heard this troop coming. You know, I heard that guy giving commands, you know. So I couldn't tell whether it was Germans or. So by that, yes, I don't like it's Americans, you know, I can understand it. And I get on in that road from down outside, you know, and I said, when you get up there, I said, all to be recognized. So this lieutenant, he come up and he said, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm waiting for a truck to come back and pick me up. He said, you see those lights around there? And these flashlights were going on, red, white, and blue. The Germans had signals made up with us, see?
Mm-hmm.
And they were flashing them back and forth with a signal. And he said, you better get out of here, he said.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not up here because I want to be. So he got his, and they marched down, they took off the whole company. I mean, it was infantry.
Mm-hmm. Did you go with them?
No, I didn't go, because I had to wait for I'm getting mixed up, that was before we picked up the ammunition.
Oh, okay.
And we picked up the ammunition after I met him.
All right. So then was it a Jeep or a truck that?
A Jeep.
Okay, and so you get in the Jeep and you get out of there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where the Jeep was loaded 12 rounds of ammunition.
Right.
It's quite a bit, you know. So we took off and down through that town.
Okay, so just to straighten out that story a little bit, so you went back to the place where the ammunition was?
Yes.
Did you help load the ammunition onto the Jeep?
Yes.
And then did they go away with that and then come back? Or why were you separated from them?
I really don't know why I was glad.
But did they drive the shells off first, or did you ride with the shells?
No, I rode with the shells. They were loaded.
All right.
The driver and I, the driver of the
Okay.
Jeep.
All right. But somewhere in the middle, you were out there by yourself waiting
Yes.
for the Jeep, and that's when that happened. Okay. All right. But you get back out of that safely enough. Now, after you get back to the unit, does the unit retreat, or?
I was happy to get back. Well, that's another time that Anderson, the captain, told me I was going to get the Silver Star.
Yep.
He said, you know how many lives you saved and how much trouble. He said that white phosphorus was deadly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's when we went back to that town.
Okay.
And it was way from Tiger, quite a way.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the name of it.
Well, was it a town that you stayed in and then moved forward from, or did you move back from there as well?
No, we just we went into another position and we get out of that town.
Right.
I can't remember.
And then do you think you stayed there for a while, or?
Yes, we stayed there for a short while.
Mm-hmm. And did the Germans keep coming after you, or did they leave you alone now?
They kind of left us alone. As I remember, anyway.
Yeah. Well, you were kind of south of where most of their advance was taking place. You were kind of at the south end of the Bulge, kind of at the corner of where you were. And so if they're mostly going forward, then they might not be trying to attack in your direction so much. So it gets a little bit quieter, at least for a while.
Yeah.
Now, then do you start counterattacking, or do you just stay there, or?
We fire a harassing fire.
Mm-hmm.
They all night long. We're gonna be in position, you know, and they give us these altitudes and ranges and stuff, and we'd fire all night long at a certain intervals.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we done that for maybe 2 weeks or so.
Yeah. Because that would have been while a lot of the rest of the campaign was playing out around Bastogne and then pushing them back again.
Right.
And you're kind of staying where you were. And then, do you start moving forward again at some point? And do you go into Germany now, or?
Yes. No. Time goes by and we we're moving towards to the Rhine.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kept going over. About that time, no, I might be mine was the infantry took the Remagen Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we get down to the Remagen Bridge, and we go in position there. And in that area where we went into position was the landing and a takeoff area for these bombs that the Germans were sending over to England.
Let's see. Were those the
Buzz bombs.
Buzz bombs, the V1s? Yeah. Okay.
And that ramp was there. That ramp must have been, I say, close to a mile, half a mile at least. Mm-hmm. And those Buzz bombs would take off up that, you know. And
mm-hmm.
So the infantry really tore that ramp, that bomb up. It wasn't done. I had some of the parts of it, you know. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't keep everything I wanted.
Right. I was going to ask, during that winter, when you're in the Bulge and you're fighting in December, January, did it get really cold?
Oh, yes.
And did your unit have frostbite problems as well as trench foot?
I didn't. The reason I didn't was I had my mother and my dad send me a pair of sheepskin moccasins.
Mm-hmm.
And I put them on inside of a pair of 5-buckle or 4-buckle arties. Mm-hmm. And all my feet were all everywhere.
Okay. Well, I guess if you come from the UP, you know something about cold.
I had to guard them boots of my life, though.
Mm-hmm. I'll bet. All right. So now you've made it you pushed forward for the Bulge. You've made it up to the Rhine River. Now, the position that you set up on, were you on the west bank of the Rhine? So the launcher was kind of going up the side of the river
west
bank?
bank.
Yeah. Yeah, so the launcher for the
The
missiles would be
launcher was running
going uphill out of the river
uphill,
valley.
yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like a reverse ski jump or
Yep.
something. Yeah. Okay. And then at the time you got to Remagen, was the old bridge still standing or just pontoon bridges?
Oh, it was still standing. You could get across it.
Mm-hmm.
But you could walk, you couldn't drive.
Okay, and why was that?
Because it was bombed. And there were beams laying across it and parts of it were,
Yep.
they didn't trust it,
Right.
But you could walk.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Americans were already, engineers were putting up a floating dock,
Yeah, and pontoon bridges?
pontoon bridge.
Yeah.
They were already putting it up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was nice there. It was nice. There was no fire going, and so this pilot in this observer plane, Taylorcraft. Well, I knew him pretty well, and talking to him and different times, and so he come looking for me. And so he found me finally, and he said, "Vern," he said, "you want to go up over the Remagen Bridge in?" And I said, "Sure. Come on." Well, I said, "There, I got to check with my captain first." So I went over to Captain Anderson, and I said, "Captain Anderson, I got a chance to go over the Remagen Bridge in." "How you going?" I said, "With that Taylorcraft." "Well, what are you waiting for?" He said, "Get going." So I went with this pilot, and we went up over the bridge, and oh, I wish I could say, I could tell you the sight that you seen it from up above there. Oh, you could see the Germans in one place and the Americans another, and so they said that they had guards on both ends of the bridge, and that night, after things quieted down a little bit again, the Germans retook the Remagen Bridge. They retook it right at night.
I don't think so. I mean, they might have told you that, but there's nothing, that's not what the records indicate at all.
No.
They did counterattack, though.
Yep, they didn't. They took the bridge back. Not, I mean, it was just, they had it for a short while.
Now, did you see that? Did you see that, or did you just hear about
Oh,
it?
yes. We're right there.
And did Germans come all the way across the river, or?
Oh, yeah, they come back. And that was quite a sight. You can talk about, you can't describe it,
Mm-hmm.
But, and then now this is getting down into, it's pretty cold,
Mm-hmm.
And so we're getting into, see, we'd been in November, we'd been in Hurtgen Forest.
Right.
And in December, we were in like Belgium and
Belgium and Luxembourg, yeah.
Luxembourg.
And
And
Remagen is March now. So February, March, you're going into
Yeah.
Germany.
so the Germans are, they're fighting to get back to, across the Rhine, to get Germany back into Germany, see. So, we've got the guns in position, and all ready to fire, you know, because we've been getting reports about activity, you know, and so my telephone rings. I'm not supposed to be answering the telephone, see, but like I said, the section chief, and he was always, he wouldn't need hiding all the time, you know, taking care of number one. Well, I answered the phone, and let me talk to Vern. Well, I knew right away it was Lieutenant Katz. So I said, you got Vern on the phone, Lieutenant. Vern, he said, we don't have much time. I can't tell you anything right now. Do what I tell you, he said. And I said, I'll be ready in less than 5 minutes. Okay. So, man, I give the commands that he gave me, relate them, and he was on the phone and he said, give me so many rounds, and I fired, and Bernie said, don't change a thing, keep them coming. So I fired again, you know. And by that time he's got battery 10 rounds. Each gun the battery fired 10 rounds. Well, I fired and I kept firing, you know, and so finally he gave the fire. He kept them. One command he gave me was, keep them coming, he said. You know, just keep them coming, he said. Well, I don't know how many rounds between the battery that we fired, and it was right on a barge, a great big barge.
Okay.
That was trying to get across the Mississippi.
Or the Rhine, anyway.
Across the Rhine, I mean. Mississippi.
Okay. Now, was Lieutenant Katz a forward observer?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, he was. And so he come back and he was telling me about it, and he said, Bernie, he said, I never seen nothing like it. He said, them rounds were falling right in that, right in that big barge, he said. And he said, that barge was just packed, just loaded, there was shed in them, and are waiting. Well, different ones ask me always, you know, how many Germans I killed. Well, in a case like that, you know, none.
Yeah. You have no idea.
I,
Right.
but, no, that's getting pretty close to the end of the.
Yes, it is. So shortly after that, did you cross the Rhine and then move into Germany?
Yep, yep,
Okay.
yep.
All right. And in the last couple months of the war there, in April and May, did the fighting quiet down, or were you in an area where the Germans were still fighting back?
No. They're still giving us resistance. They still give us resistance.
Or were you going into cities, or were you in the countryside?
Come again?
Were you fighting in cities, or were you out in the country?
No, we were out in the country.
Okay.
They got a notice that this is getting pretty close to the end of the war. No treaty was signed or nothing yet, but we had taken Paris. Paris fell, the Germans moved out.
Well, that was back in August of 44. I mean, Paris is back in France.
Yeah.
Now, the Russians are taking Berlin at that point.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the end, yeah. So that may be what you heard about at that point, that Berlin fell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But now, I know this story I'm telling you concerning Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right now. That's right. But anyway, they took us from Paris. They marched, went through Paris, the 28th Division.
Mm-hmm.
Paraded right through Paris, right down under the Arc de Triomphe.
Mm-hmm.
And we went all right out into the outskirts where Eiffel Tower is.
Mm-hmm.
And they said for us not to go above the first level on the Eiffel Tower
Mm-hmm.
because the Germans were sniping. We stayed there overnight. And I can remember getting the Frenchmen were out and they were gathering this clover. Alfalfa clover, they were gathering it. And we didn't know what they were doing. And finally we found out that they were gathering and they were roasting it over a fire. And that's what they made coffee out of.
Mm-hmm.
Was that alfalfa. But
Okay, so you did, so that was on your way across France that you went through that part of
Yes.
Paris? Okay, all right. But now we kind of get to the end of we get to May of 45 and you're in Germany. Do you know where you were when the war ended or when the war with Germany ended? What part of Germany you were in or what town you were close to?
yep,
So where were you?
Lauterecken.
Okay. And where is that?
It's in Germany.
Okay. Is it kind of in southern Germany or
I-
middle?
I believe it's up towards the middle more.
Okay, all right. And did the fighting just stop at that point, or were there still people shooting after that?
Well, they're still firing after that.
Mm-hmm.
But we stayed in Lauterecken. Lauterecken is a train station.
Okay.
In I'd say there's maybe 20 to 40 railroad running through it,
Mm-hmm.
tracks,
Okay.
in a really busy place. Well, they put us on guard there, and so we're right by the railroad, and we see these trains coming, and of course, those trains had a lot of hot box and bearing, and whenever we seen a hot box, we stopped the train, and because we knew the car would be loaded, and we'd stop the train and go look in what they're loaded with, and almost every time it was either fish or beans, and to get from the railroad station where we were guarding, you went over the bridge and up in we stayed in this school. And it was a pretty good sized school. Well, one night we stopped on the train and of course it was loaded with beans. And so Ackerman says, well, I'm going to take a case of that beans up to the kitchen for the mess sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he puts the beans on his shoulder and he starts walking. He's got to walk across the dam to get across that river. He slipped and lost his beans.
Oh.
Well, the outgoing fellow sergeant, Ackerman was, goes to take the gates out of the dam, drains the dam. Well, there were dead Germans, all kinds of weapons, guns, and everything thrown in that dam.
All right. Now, at the point when the Germans surrender and you're in this area, do you start to see the German civilians come out?
Oh yes, yes, yes. But we couldn't talk to them.
Yeah, no fraternization.
No fraternization.
All right. What impression did you have of the German people at that point?
Well, the German people as a whole were good people. Almost every one of them, the civilian you talked to, they didn't want the war. But if one thing they were forced, you know, either do it or die. But as for the German people, they were good people.
So your guys got along with them pretty well.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Now, did you stay in that area until it was time for you to go home, or did they move you around?
We moved around, but that was kind of our headquarters, was Lauterecken. But we go up to Kaiserslautern quite a bit. That's a pretty good sized town.
Yeah.
And we had the mail up there. And that's where we got our mail was. And I can remember again, we'd take these tank, and we'd go up to Lauterecken, and go to Kaiserslautern, from Lauterecken, and we get our mail, and they just wanted us to move them 37 caliber, you know, gun on a tank. And over they do about 70 miles an hour. And can you imagine just going down the road that wide open, you know, 70 miles an hour? Oh, I wonder we didn't get killed, but
Now, was this on a truck, or?
no, I'm a big. It's
Was it an armored car?
armored truck.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, okay. Because there were armored cars, there were scout cars that were armored, basically, or little small armored trucks.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, those could do 70 miles an hour, probably.
Oh, yeah.
The tank couldn't, but that could. All right. And once we got to the end of the war, then they started to send people home. And a lot of them went home when they had enough points to be able to go home. So, but sometimes they went as a whole unit. So, did your unit come home together, or did you go individually?
No, we came together.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so do you remember, and that was later in 1945? So it's still the same year? So I think your discharge is October or something like that.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So how did they get you home?
Well, we went to this. Am I thinking right? Miles Standish. Camp Miles Standish.
Miles Standish, that would have been a camp back in Massachusetts
Yeah.
that you might have landed at.
That's where we landed.
Okay. Do you remember where you left from? Did you go out of Le Havre or somewhere else? Did you sail out of France or out of Germany? So a lot of them went to camps that were named after different brands of cigarettes.
Yes. Them right from camp. I'm trying to think of that a cigarette. We were in a cigarette camp.
Yeah, okay. So like Lucky Strike or Marlboro or one
Yeah.
of those. Yeah, okay. So you go to France and you sail out of Havre, but you land at Boston basically. So you,
Yep.
And they process you at Camp Miles Standish. Now, did they discharge you there, or did they send you somewhere else to get discharged?
Camp Grant again.
And back to Camp Grant. All right. And then from there you get back home. Now, do you remember anything about the voyage back across the Atlantic? Was that better than the way over or worse?
Oh yeah, it was quiet.
Okay. And were you still in a troop ship?
Yep,
Okay.
yep,
So
troop
you do
ship.
that again. All right. And then you get home. Okay. So you've gone off. You've been to war. So you just come back home again to where your parents are.
Yes.
Okay. And then after you got home, what kind of work did you do?
Well, I didn't do much of anything. They had that policy, what was it,
5220?
5220 or 5250?
Yeah, something like that. Or 5250. Yeah. Or well, 20. Maybe it might have been $20 a week, 52 weeks, or.
Yeah, something like
But
that.
they gave you some money when you got home.
Yep.
Okay. And then, but eventually you had to get a job.
Well, I had a buddy, he'd been in the Army, in the Air Corps, and he never left the States or nothing. And he was working for the state of Michigan, the Michigan State Ferries.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me and asked me if I wanted to go to work. Well, I wasn't quite ready, but anyway, I went to work.
Okay.
Well, I worked for the Michigan State Ferries.
The Michigan State what?
State Ferries,
So ferries, as in ferry boats?
carry the cars across the road.
Okay, car ferries. All right.
And I worked for them for, I say 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they were political, and so the ones that were politicians, they had the good jobs, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was rated as an A, and I was getting B pay.
Mm-hmm.
So I quit. I heard about them starting the causeway on the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
So I quit, and I went to work for Johnson and Green on the causeway.
Okay. So is that the bridge across the Straits of
Yes.
Mackinac? Okay. So you've helped build the Big Mac Bridge.
Yeah, so right from start to finish.
All right.
Um,
Okay. And then did you stay in engineering or construction work, or did you do other things after that?
I worked on all the bridges.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on the bridge in the Sioux,
Okay.
and then I worked on the Mackinac Bridge, of course, right from the start to finish. And no, other than that,
Well, but I mean, but did you just?
and then no, like later after the bridge was built,
Yeah.
I joined the ironwork. Well, I did belong to the ironworkers,
Okay.
and I was an ironworker until I retired.
All right. Now, we're getting close to the end of this tape as well. I want to ask you sort of one last question, and that is, how do you think your time in the service affected you, or what did you learn from it?
I learned to take commands, and time in the service affected me hearing-wise.
Yes.
I can't hear on my left ear hardly at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I keep asking. But other than that, it was a good experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's something, but one thing that bothers me, I'm still fighting that war.
Mm-hmm.
At night, when I go to bed, I remember when I first come back, well, was staying with my mother and daddy in the little old farmhouse, and the Germans were attacking then.
So it stays with you in some bad ways, even though it was mostly a good thing.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, I feel very lucky to have the chance to meet you and record your story today. So thank you very much for sharing it.
Let's hope it does some good and do something with it.
I think it will. All right. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So we're starting up again here.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
All right. Now we are doing here an appendix to the interview with Vern Erskine because as we were here and the family members were here, they thought of different particular stories that he's told in the past that they want to get recorded here. You mentioned in your story that you had met General Eisenhower. Now they also tell me that you met General Patton.
Oh yes, I met General Patton twice. Both times he pulled me out.
Okay. And why was that?
One time was in Wiltz, Luxembourg. I had taken my gun to ordnance because the recoil wasn't working on it. So I hooked the tow truck and the driver of the truck and I took it to Wiltz. And got up there and of course we had to stay overnight. And the next day was about open the afternoon anyway. We start back to get connected back on my battery. And about halfway there, well, we met this Jeep coming with 5 stars on it. Right on the way I knew it was Patton. So he stopped us. And I jumped out quick and reported to him. And he said no other word. He said, "What in the hell are you doing out here?" He said, "with that gun." He said, "and nobody around except Germans," he said. He said, "Do you know you're surrounded by Germans?" And I wanted to say to him, "Well, how about you?" Well, anyway, that was my one conversation with him.
Okay. So was this during the early part? Well, was this during the Battle of the Bulge?
No.
Was it after that or before it?
It was after the battle.
Okay. All right. So that was because the Germans had gone through Wiltz and they had pushed the 110th Regiment of your division out of there.
Yep.
But then but for Patton to be there, that would be later because he comes up later. So you pushed back again, but there were still Germans around.
Yep.
Okay. Now, did you just keep going and go back to your battery anyway?
Yes,
Okay.
I went back and I reported to the captain and told him what happened.
Okay. So what was the second time with Patton?
The second time, the snipers were really working. And anybody that had any insignia on them, they give them, they were in charge, they were a target. Well, this captain, this Lieutenant Taylor, he he was talking to us, and he said he wanted to go and look at something, so he wanted to know if we'd go with him, just walking. And we started out walking, didn't get very far. We meet the Jeep with the 5 stars. And of course, Lieutenant Taylor, he had his army jacket turned wrong side out. We said there was no insignia on it, no identification. Had his hat off a liner on, and we met General Patton. And that time he wasn't very nice at all. asked if that lieutenant, he said, "Are you ashamed of your service? Don't you want to wear the uniform?" You know, we went raked all of us over the coals and finally he left. But
Did anyone explain to him why he was doing that?
I told him, you know.
Okay.
But then
They didn't care.
it didn't do good to tell him.
Okay. All right. Now, another thing they told me is that there was a point when you saw a German pilot who was shot down and parachuted near your
yeah.
position.
We were in position on Christmas Day, and we happened. It's a beautiful morning. The sun's shining, but it's colder than the son of a gun. So overhead, there's a German plane is circling around, and he's circling around, and finally we couldn't figure out what he was looking for. Well, over comes two P-37s, Thunderbirds, and they're loaded with 500-pound bomb, one under each wing. So that German Messerschmitt, he took off after that. Them Thunderbirds. Well, the Thunderbirds couldn't stand a chance against him. They couldn't maneuver with them bombs. So they set up a little defense by circling one another, and they circle around that ME-109, and they killed time. In the meantime, they were calling for a pursuit ship to come. Well, just like an angel out of the sky, and along comes this P-38, a double fuselage on it. And he goes down, and the Messerschmitt couldn't outmaneuver him. And boy, he'd get on his tail and he'd fire, and empty cage and landing right by it. We were picking him up.
So he parachuted out of the plane, or did he land the plane on the field?
No, he just, they were shooting at each other.
Okay, but you said, but the Messerschmitt came down. But the
No, he didn't come down. No, he just stayed up there.
all right.
And he circling around. And finally that P-38 got onto his tail, and man, they let drive with a fuselage, and the smoke poured out of that Messerschmitt, and out comes the parachute. So when that parachute hit the ground, we were right there, right where he landed. And he was dressed, immaculate, black polished boots on, just shining, nice blue uniform with silk scarf, and so by that time the captain's over there with us, Captain Anderson's with us, and he questioned me, he just spit. So some of the guys said, "Let me take care of him," you know, but well, anyway, the MPs come up and got him and took him off.
Okay. So basically, this pilot had an attitude.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you had that. Now, you mentioned that was Christmas Day.
That
Now,
was,
they also mentioned where you were the previous night on Christmas Eve.
yes.
What happened then?
Well, that the Christmas Eve, I think that was a different Christmas though.
Okay. Well, you only had one in Europe. I guess they were talking about you were being in a hayloft or something, and some woman bringing you cookies.
Oh, that was in Luxembourg.
Okay.
And this woman, it was on Christmas, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
She brought us big St. Nick's cookies.
Mm-hmm.
They're about 12 inches high. Really good cookie.
Yeah.
Her name was Mrs. Ish. I-S-H.
And were you just staying in her house? or-
No. We were staying in a little barn they had out on the...
Oh, you were in the barn. Okay, so you let them have the house. All right. Okay.
That was one instance. But she had a sister in Chicago, she told us.
Okay. And so she spoke some English, or
Beg pardon?
did she speak some English, or?
Yeah, she could speak English. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then, I guess you also spent some time in a hospital. You had,
Oh yes. I got food poisoning from eating turkey salad out of aluminum container.
mm-hmm.
And the whole battery was laid out. The Germans could have walked in and just,
Okay. So was this something supplied by your field kitchen, or was this just coming out of cans? This turkey salad?
by our field kitchen.
Oh, okay. Oh well. All right. Anything else?
Vern, was there anything, or maybe I'm dreaming this, about Audie Murphy that you had a run-in with, or you were in the same hospital as him or something? Or
Did you ever-
Am I dreaming this?
Did you ever encounter Audie Murphy? The,
Yeah, oh, yes. Yes, I went to a hospital for treatment for some or another. It wasn't right. And Audie Murphy was there. And I just talked to him just a couple of minutes, you know.
Was he a patient at the hospital, or was he now a hero already and visiting people?
He wasn't a hero yet,
Okay.
but I didn't know it was Audie Murphy, but after I got back to my battery, and after, well, this medics told me that was Audie Murphy.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, is he off the hook now?
Pam?
Any more stories you can remember?
That's all I.
All right.
The schoolgirl one, but I don't know if he wants to talk about that.
Oh, wait a minute. There was one other thing they did tell me about, and that was that at some point you saw a German boy, a civilian, get hit in fighting.
Oh, yes, I was in,
Was that
That
after
would've been
Remagen?
Luxembourg
Or it
again.
was still in Luxembourg. Okay.
and we'd moved into this position. Now, this is quite a long story,
Okay.
but we fired on that town, and finally they said, CSMO, we moved right up to the town. We get up that town, and all the school children are out there in their little black uniform and their long black socks. And they're all waving a little American flag. And they're Viva la American Viva. And so all at once the Germans started to shoot 88s. And that little boy standing in line waving the flag was about like from here to you from me. And right before my eyes, shot his right leg right off. Just tore it right off. Right, just, I couldn't believe it, you know. And so we were still going up in the position in they're firing those 88s, oh man, and them things are terrible. They shoot a flat trajectory just like a rifle.
Yeah.
They can be on a hill a mile away and shoot like a rifle.
Yeah. And they can shoot a very long distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they kept after that missed me, that shot missed me about, like just about 3 or 4 feet.
Right.
Well,
Did the shell explode, or did it just go by and take the leg with it?
it didn't explode.
Okay.
It must have been a shot, regular round, you know, a heavy round. But anyway, they kept firing, and they have these double barrel 88s. It'll fire and you'll duck down, then just get up, and all at once there's another shot right behind it. Well, we were going up through this hedgerow, and the gun on behind and all the guns in line, they were going to win position by that other side of that town. Well, our gun got caught in that hedgerow. Well, the truck kept going, and it rolled that hedgerow just like a little coil. Until it let go. And, but they kept firing. The Germans kept after it. Well, they hit this next truck to be this. I was number 2 gun, and that gun was number 3. And they hit the back end of number 3 gun and killed 2 or 3 guys and left an long way wounded. Well, and so I'm back behind this hedgerow. I just managed to get back there, back to that hedgerow. And I'm looking out, and there's a guy laying, and the blood is just out of his arm right there. The blood just, every time his heart beat, it squirt right in the air. I knew that he couldn't live very long. So, I didn't know what I could use for it to have a tourniquet. So, I thought, well, I got my belt on, I'll get that. So, I slipped my belt on. That's the one I got shot for the almost got in 2. That's where it went. But I run out there, and I took my that everybody gets that sulfur to spread on the wound.
Right.
I don't know what they call it, but anyway, I took that and put it against that vein, and then took my belt and wrapped it around, and I got the blood to stop. And I grabbed him and picked him up. He was a big man, and I brought him to the edge of the hedgerow, and I stayed there until the medics come and got him. And a few days later, we were still in the same position. And the ambulance stopped, and they're looking for me. So somebody pointed me out to me, the driver come over to me, and He had my belt,
Oh,
and he brought it back. This guy, his name was Lot Hughes. Well, he said, Vern's pants will be falling off, he said. So I had already got a rope, and I had this rope, and we sold him a man. But,
so did that man survive? The man you helped, did he survive?
oh, yes, he did, yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
okay. I think
That's
now,
about that.
I think that's going to be a wrap.
That's a good
So
one.
glad we were able to add those stories.